This is why you need to stop making excuses and start today. You may be telling yourself the best time to start was 6 months, 1 year, or a few years ago. But I'm telling you right now, the second best time to start is now. When I say start, this can be for anything: a new career path, a fitness journey, dating, self development, or whatever comes to your beautiful mind. Instead of continuing to make up excuses as to why you haven't started, today is the day that you begin the journey. Ignore exterior opinions. Don't worry about not knowing where you are going or what you're even doing. Just get moving. Today, we're going to equip you with the mental framework that will allow you to go full speed ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bob Bay. Each week on these solo podcasts, I try to share some insights on topics to help you become the best version of yourself. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. This is just my bearded wisdom that hopes brings value to you. Now, if you enjoyed this episode at any moment in time, please, all that I ask, screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob-A. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Share out the podcast on your IG story and let me know what was the biggest takeaway. What did you learn? How did this specific episode change or shift your perspective? It would be so much appreciated. And I love seeing all you guys and gals share it out on a weekly basis. So please keep doing it. Let's go. Also, if you have not yet signed up for our Stay Dialed In newsletter, you are missing out. This is the greatest email that will touch your inbox on a weekly basis. I'm telling you, it is some high quality newsletter content, 3 to 5 minute read. The entire point of the newsletter is to help you become the greatest version of yourself. So please sign up today. You can head over to itsthebeardedman.com to join. Once again, that is itsthebeardedman.com to join. You can also find the link in the description of this episode to sign up. So please do yourself a favor today and sign up. Thank you very much. Start today. I had a conversation with my sister and my good friend Dylan Reese the other night about my journey as a podcaster. We sat there eating pizza as I laughed, thinking back to this vivid memory of being in Dylan's studio in the summer of 2016 and brainstorming the idea of starting a podcast. It felt right, but I also had no clue what in the world I was doing. I wasn't guaranteed or promised where it would take me, but I just knew this is what I needed to do next now that I was 6 figures of college debt in my back pocket and honestly with no game plan of how to pay it off. Once I launched the podcast on August 31st of 2016, the rest is history. There is no question about it. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for this one small decision of getting started that would then have a ripple effect of the life that I'm living today in 2021. Now, this isn't me bragging. I'm not talking about my life and think I'm Mr. Cool Guy. This is me hopefully leading by example for all of you. I'm not above you. I'm not below you. I am actually right beside you, trying to walk the same journey with you every step of the way through these podcast episodes as I dive into my experiences and lessons that I've learned along the way. Now, I want you each to take a second and think about that idea that has been on your mind for some time and you have hesitated to take a step towards it. It doesn't matter what it is, but keep it in mind as you listen to the rest of this episode. And believe me, I get it. There are exterior opinions holding you back. You don't know where to start, so it feels so much more comforting to just not start at all. You're nervous to fail, quote unquote, and fall in front of all of your friends. Insert every other excuse that comes to your mind now. And I want you to imagine a whiteboard with all those excuses that are running so clearly through your mind right now. This probably will strike a nostalgic chord of being in high school, listening to your science teacher explain something that might as well have been a foreign language because you have no care in the world and you do not understand what you're being taught. Now, it's no disrespect to my science peeps. I'm just talking about some of my own personal experience of, my God, back in the day, B.O.B., the bearded man, did not know what he was doing in class. Now that you can mentally visualize this whiteboard of all the excuses as to why you have not yet started, I want you to take a mental napkin and wipe the board clean. I'm not talking just the first few excuses. I'm talking every single one of them. Okay? Clean the board. It's time to flip to a new chapter. It is time to start fresh. I want today to be the day that you finally take that first step, like I did when I was in Dylan's studio back in 2016. All it is a switch in your mind. And once you turn it on, it's go time. Now that the whiteboard is clear in your mind, let's take some notes on what we must keep in mind as we begin to move forward as we start this new chapter of our life. So here are 4 reminders for getting started today. Number 1, starting is the momentum you need. This is one of my favorite quotes from the GOAT, Brandon Cohen, founder of Liquid IV. We've discussed this on my podcast with him for episode 82 of this podcast, and he preaches this in a lot of the content that he has put out into the world. We need to get started in order for the momentum to begin. If visualizations help, think of a snowball rolling down a mountain. In the beginning, it is this little tiny snowball, but as time goes, the snowball rolls down the mountain further, and it builds and it builds and it builds. This is what happens when we get started with something new. In any area of our life, it builds and builds and builds. Now, I know for a fact that as you're hearing this, you're making up an excuse to draw back on that whiteboard of reasons as to why you can't get started. Not enough time. I don't want to hear it. Carve out time if it's something you really want to do. Not enough money. Not acceptable. Make use of the little to no resources that you have. There is always a way. Or not sure how to. That's valid, but break it down into the small steps. Don't think about how to take a massive leap to the end result. Think about one step that you can take today that will get you closer to it. As nerve-wracking as it was to record that first podcast episode, to go on that first date after 3+ years of being off the grid, to picking up running when I could barely get in 1 mile, I just got started and I stuck with it. I'm telling you, I'm a regular guy from Massachusetts who happened to be blessed with some amazing beer genetics, right? I possess no skills or secrets that you don't already have within you. All you have to do is take the first step to build these ideas and these dreams into your life. So step number 1 to getting started today, remind yourself that starting is the momentum that you need. Once you begin, slowly with time, you will build up speed along the way, so long as you stay consistent. Number 2, build the plan as you go. Am I suggesting you just wing it and start? Kinda, but not really. I think it is important to spend time planning and thinking ahead of time of what you want to do and where you want to go. That's great because it'll get the juices flowing and it'll give you some sense of direction of where you're headed, but it can also be an excuse for us to never actually get going. There will never be a perfect blueprint because inevitably, once you get going, you will then need to make changes and course correct for reasons outside of your control. It is part of life, and there is no valid reason as to why you should stress or worry about it. I can't write a perfect blueprint today for who's going to be on my podcast in a few months from now, or when I can expect to find a quote unquote perfect match in someone that I would like to date. Now, of course, I can have expectations, but is that really possible? Not really. Inevitably, things will fall into place with time, and I will continue to write the blueprint as I go. Now, I know how scary it might think or sound to not know where you're going because I have been in your shoes not long ago, and I get it, and I feel for you. Believe me. But speaking from my experience, since I've been there once before, you need to trust the process of sailing into the abyss. It may seem cloudy. There may be no end in sight, but you got to keep sailing through to see what is on the other side. Don't go around it. Don't turn back and head back the way you came. Don't toss out the anchor into the water and just sit there. Move forward. So step number 2 to getting started today, think about where you want to go and how you would like things to play out, but don't expect to have the perfect blueprint written ahead of time. Get going and write the plan as you go. Number 3, start in order to someday become great. Zig Ziglar once said, "You don't have to be great to start. You need to start in order to someday become great." Part of the reason that I think a lot of people are afraid to start is because they immediately compare themselves to those who started a long time ago. They see how great they are and what they do, and then they get too intimidated to even begin the process of taking that first step. If we keep this quote in mind, we will never hesitate at taking a step towards what and who we want to become. We will recognize that in order for us to become like anyone we look up to, it will be a constant work in progress. Yes, we may not be anywhere near their level right now, but we damn well can be. And I got a perfect example from my own life, because some of you might be listening thinking, "Bearded man, you're talking out of your ass." Here's an example. I was hugely inspired by a short story long podcast with drama that launched 3 months before my first podcast in 2016. Now, for those who may not be aware who Drama is, Drama had already had his foot in the door of to interview high level individuals, because he had built his career from MTV's Robin Big and Fantasy Factory. And then he went on to be the founder of clothing line lifestyle brand Young and Reckless. Essentially, he was interviewing people that I aspired to meet and interview as well. 2.5 years later, in January of 2019, I released a podcast with a guest by the name of Charlie Rocket. On that same exact day, with no planning and no idea that this was going to happen, Short Story Long put out an episode with Charlie Rocket as well. It was a surreal moment for me to see that I was now interviewing guests that were on a podcast that so much inspired me to get going. Had I compared myself from the beginning, I never would have got the ball rolling, and this moment would have never happened. Let's remind ourselves once again of what Zig Ziglar said. You don't have to be great to start. You need to start in order to someday become great. Don't compare yourself to others. Focus on getting 1% better per day, and know that it will always be a work in progress. So step number 3 to getting started, start in order to someday become great, because that is the only way we will ever get to where we want to be. Don't fall for the comparison trap. Let others' success inspire you for what is possible. And number 4, we overestimate what we can do in a day. Many have preached it, but the most recognizable name that I came across was Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. He once said, "People overestimate what they can do in a day, and they underestimate what they can do in a year." Let's call it the way it is. Most time we place high expectations on what we can accomplish within a day, and that's not a bad thing. We are pushing ourselves to see what we are really made of. The problem is that when we place high expectations that aren't humanly possible to achieve, we then let ourselves actually set ourselves up for not success, because we see ourselves crossing off so many lists on this item list of the day, and we don't actually are able to do so. As you begin to get started today, please keep this in mind, as it will benefit you tremendously in the long haul. Set realistic expectations on what you can accomplish within a day, and those small wins are going to stack up with time. Every time that I release a new podcast episode, I try to hype myself up as if this is going to be the best podcast rollout yet. Why? Because it's making me appreciate the little bit of progress that I can make within the day. And it's truly making me fall in love with the process versus stressing getting to the end result. So step number 4 to getting started, do not overestimate what you can do in a day. The beauty of day 1 is there is nothing but room to grow. Think big picture, but focus on small incremental steps. To recap, you haven't taken the first step because it is the hardest step to take. I get it. Speaking from experience, when we get started, it actually gets easier. The new addition to your life becomes part of it, which then becomes a non-negotiable and something that we feel we have to do. Ignore exterior opinions and cut out that negative inner voice that comes up with every excuse in the book to push off getting started. 4 reminders for getting started today. Number 1, starting is the momentum that you need. Remind yourself that starting is the momentum that you need. Once you begin, slowly with time, you will build up speed so long as you stay consistent. Number 2, build the plan as you go. Think about where you want to go and how you would like things to play out, but don't expect to have the perfect blueprint written ahead of time. Get going and write the plan as you go. Number 3, start in order to someday become great. Start in order to someday become great because that is the only way we will ever get to where we want to be. Don't fall for the comparison trap. Let others' success inspire you for what is possible. And number 4, we overestimate what we can do in a day. Do not overestimate what you can do in a day. The beauty of day 1 is there is nothing but room to grow. Think big picture, but focus on the small incremental steps per day. Challenge for the listeners. That is you, beautiful ladies and gentlemen. Spend 10 minutes within the next 24 hours and write out a list of things that you have neglected starting. There's something on your mind that you've wanted to do. It doesn't matter what it is, but you want to do it and you have not yet done it. Maybe there's more. So now that you have a list, pick any one of them that interests you the most and start the process today. Not tomorrow, not the day after that, not next week, next month. You need to start today. Once again, don't worry about getting to the end result. Focus on the small steps that you can take today that will get you a little bit closer. Stay consistent, and there'll be nothing but growth that will come from it. We did not have a pod review of the week. If you would like to be next week's pod review, please head over to the iTunes podcast app. Leave a 1-sentence, 1-word review of what you guys and gals think of this podcast project. It is so helpful for the growth of the show. And I also love reading some feedback to see what you guys and gals are liking. So please, if you have not yet already, head to the iTunes podcast app, leave a 1-word, 1-sentence review, and it would be so much appreciated. If you enjoyed this specific episode, all that I ask, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you were listening in on. Post it to your IG story. Tag me at Bob A. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and Y. Share the podcast on your IG story. Let me know what was the biggest takeaway. What was the learning? How did this specific episode shift your perspective? Maybe even tell me what's the one thing that you're planning on starting because of the episode. I would be so fired up if there is something that you start today because of this episode. So please let me know what it is. If you have not yet signed up for our Stay Dialed In newsletter, you are missing out. Head over to itsthebeardedman.com to join. 3 to 5 minute read every single Tuesday coming in hot to your inbox. This email is going to be on fire. It's going to be blazing in hot to your email, and you're going to want to read it. So the entire purpose of these newsletters is to help you become the best version of yourself. So please sign up today. That's itsthebeardedman.com to join. You can also find the link in the description, of this episode, and sign up today. That's it. Episode 135. 4 reasons why you need to stop making excuses and start today. It's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya.